Hey everyone, welcome back to the Student Portfolio project and playlist. This is video 6, and we are going to be picking up where we left off by styling the hero section on the main page here. So where we left off, we set up this structure for HTML, and we had one container called hero wrapping up everything, and the two children of the container were the image itself, and then on the right-hand side, something called hero text. And then hero text had three different subcontainers or children: top, bottom, and button. Now, this is what the full screen looks like. And we are going to continue like we did in a previous project with a mobile approach. So that means I want to just kind of reset your visual here to what this would look like on a mobile screen. So on your screen right now is the finished product for mobile. So things should stack on top of each other, image on top, then hero text top, bottom, and then button. So that's how we're going to progress. Let's head on over to our Cloud9 IDE or any integrated development environment you are using. And recall this, we want our index.html from our student portfolio project. So make sure you are pulling that file group down, opening up index. We will also need the style.css, so double click on that, and let's head back to index. Recall we had all of this structure. Here is our navigation that we set up a few lessons ago, and now this was the hero section set up from the previous class or lesson. Again, a little recap. If I click on the HTML semantic tag for section on line 35, notice I get a subtle rectangle around the closing tag on line 54. That, as we now know, all HTML elements are simply containers or boxes, and that is the main box of this page. It has two children, so the next box would be hero image, so that opens on 36, closes on 38, and the class name is hero image. And then finally, hero text, which opens on 39, closes on 53. So as you can see, the comments really come in handy as we leave a project and come back to it. The structure, as we did it, comments are for us as we work deeper into the project. So we have this all nice and laid out, and including the closing. So let's begin with our hero class. So remember, we want to match the spelling here. So I try to recall by putting in the name hero into the clipboard. So I'll highlight hero and hit Control C and come on over to style, and here move your cursor to the end of the body styling and hit enter twice. Remember, a class begins with dot, whereas an element is just the HTML element here, and then we're going to hit paste. So dot hero, and our next is we want to display this as flex, and recall we want flex direction here. Because we're approaching this with a mobile first design, we want flex direction to be column, which means I want the two children of that hero container to be on top of each other, hero image and hero text. So that should make that occur. And remember, if we did not do that, the default would be side by side. So that's necessary here, and then we want to move to our main axis. So because we're using flex direction column, the main axis now is vertical, or your algebra days, your Y number line or Y axis. So the property that impacts your main axis is justify content. And we want the content simply spaced evenly on the screen. Okay, so that's the two boxes. Remember, right now this is vertical. So the opposite axis is impacted by the property align items. In this case, because we're column, the opposite direction is now horizontal. So horizontally, we want those boxes to be aligned in the center of, we want the content to be aligned in the center of the box. So I believe that should do it for this section. Let's see, Control C, and let's bring up the preview here. So we want to hit Control S to save. Come on back to index, move your cursor somewhere in there, and let's preview and see what this looks like. So notice that is exactly what happened. We have the mobile look. What I'm going to do here is make a quick adjustment. I'm going to slide over the editor to the right hand side. It's always good to give yourself a little real estate. We could come back to that later. And I'm going to move this to look a little more mobile-like. And there we go. So right now, as you can see, as we go closer and closer to mobile, we've got our drop down as we designed before, but we do not, this image is getting a little too tight. So let's start styling the two children, hero image and hero text. So back to style.css and dot hero image, or you could have put that in the clipboard as I recommended. And we want just a little padding here. That's about it for this. Let's add 2 rem for padding to get that off the sides a little bit. Let's take a look and see how that looks. Let's see, hero image. And now let's target the actual image itself. So what I'm typing in here is within the hero image class, the next styling should target the actual image tag within that class. And we want to add a little border radius, which is just a little curvature to the actual image itself. And let's do 6 rem. And box shadow. Our horizontal shadow is 10, our vertical shadow is 10, and we're going to have a color of black. So 3 zeros is enough to, instead of all 6, that is the black color. Now, as we're going through this a little quicker, we're not going back and forth to W3 schools, but if you need to recall what that is, for example, like box shadow, we use it on occasion, but not all the time. Head on over or Google box shadow CSS W3 schools, or just go into W3 schools, and here is the actual box shadow content, the property. And if you know in the example here, or notice in the example, the horizontal number is first. That specifies the horizontal shadow. We're coincidentally using 10 as well. Vertical shadow is 10, and then lastly, we could also, the third value for the box shadow property could be to identify the color of that shadow. So we have done just that. Okay, let's hit Control S, save, and refresh, and now there's our curvature, and you can see a little bit of the 3-dimensional effect there. Okay, staying with the image, I believe. Let's see. We want that image to take up 100% of the container of hero image. So as that container adjusts, the image will adjust so that we have the responsive behavior. Likewise, we want height to be auto for the same reason. So now as you move that image out, it will respond accordingly. And notice it kind of ended that, it had a little bit of overflow here. Now it cut back and stayed within the container. And as we shrink that page down, the container will shrink so the image doesn't overflow outside of the container, and now the image responds much better. So that's the strategies behind those two. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's see, next we want to get set up with the next section, hero text. So that class, remember, dot for the class, open curly brackets, and we want, let's adjust the font size here a little bit for mobile. We're going to do 7/10 of 16 pixels, or 7.7 rem. Let's add some padding on the bottom. That is going to impact the position to the footer, which we do not have yet, but we're going to need that, so let's put that in there now. So two rems for padding on the bottom. It doesn't impact what we're seeing immediately. We want to text align that all of the content to the center here, and let's just see if any of that took effect. Let's Control S and refresh, and there we go. So we've got a smaller text here, everything aligned to the center. And now let's actually add something called letter spacing. And letter spacing will space out the lettering a little bit to make it a little more readable. Let's Control S, and notice now that's why we wanted a little bit of a font size adjustment. We could probably go to 0.8 to make that a little larger. It's totally up to you. This is the mobile view now, okay? All right, so that is hero text. Now, let's just recall where we're at here on our HTML structure. So we styled the hero, we styled hero image, we're styling hero text, and remember there are 3 children. So now we want to take a look at hero name. Is that, let's see. Okay, let's go back to the finished product here just momentarily. And recall that when we notice we have the name Aladdin, much larger and a different color font. So we want to add a tag to that, or a class to that file. So we want to go back to our index.html, and we want to adjust the h1 there. So back to our index.html, and let's see, here is our hero name. So notice we are in hero text here in the top. So we want to target right inside of the h1. So move your cursor inside of the h1. We want to add a class equals hero name. And we also want to wrap the name Aladdin with a tag, an EM tag, and that's for emphasis. So there's an EM snippet. Notice on my screen I've got that white tag opening. I'm going to delete that. I want to take Aladdin, the content in white, hit Control X, and place it inside of the emphasis tag. Now, let's see, Control V. That emphasis tag takes the place of kind of an italic. It's a tag in HTML that says that we want to highlight this a little bit more than normal. So a couple of things. Let's see, without styling on the emphasis tag, on the hero name, let's just see what that does first. So hit save and refresh, and notice it just made it somewhat italic. Now we want to go back to our style sheet, and we want to target that dot hero name, open curly brackets, and let's see. Okay, so we want to change the color here, and let's go up to our color palette, and we want the Vegas gold. So I'm going to put that in my memory here. So Control C, scroll back down to hero name, and I want hashtag, oops, Shift 3, and then the hex color for the Vegas gold, and then close that thought out with a semicolon. Okay, we want to change the font size. We want a little bigger font size here, and we want this to be 2.5 rem, semicolon. We want the font family to stay the same, but we want to text transform to uppercase here. So now let's hit Control S and refresh, and notice now Aladdin becomes far more prominent, and it makes a little sense why we went smaller on this and larger on the name. So we've got our mobile look. The image takes the top, the text takes the bottom, Aladdin's highlighted more. Let's keep going here. We're going to add some paddings in next. So let's see. Enter twice after the hero name, and let's type in hero text top, put a padding of 1 rem, same for bottom, and now we're going to target the actual button. So we have a total class for button, that's down below, but then we have an individual class. So let's just refresh our memory. Let's go back to index. And here's what we're referring to right down here. Notice the entire container is labeled with hero button, so we're going to give a little padding inside of that. And then we have a class of button attached to that anchor tag that will take us to the project.html. Now I think I might have to actually change that. Yeah, remember we said projects, so do me a favor. I think I forgot the S there, so that would be a problem. Okay. So we want to target button next. So let's go back to style.css after we save the HTML. And let's go grab the text for button or the style for button. There's a little bit here. So move after hero button and hit dot button, and then background color we're going to change to white. Padding 1 rem. We're going to apply a border around it, which is 1 pixel. It's going to be solid, and the color is going to be the accent color. So that's going to be the border around the button. We're going to give the some curvature to the button of 25 pixels, similar to the image. Font size 0.85 rem. Font weight, we want that to be darker, so that's 700. The color choice for the font itself is the 200. That is going to be the background, equivalent to the background color of the entire project. And then text decoration none. What that does, it takes away the underline, and finally a box shadow with similar to the image that we did before. So let's take a look and see how that turned out. And there is our white background, our text, okay, and let's make sure you save that. Let's make that font size 0.9. Let's see what that does. Just makes that a little bit larger on our mobile view. Okay. One last thing is when we move over this button, we want some kind of a hover effect. So that will be our last piece here. So move your cursor to the end of the closing curly bracket for the button style. Hit enter twice. And we want dot button colon hover, no spaces. So that says when the button is in a hover state, we want the following styles to take effect. We want to change the background color, we want to change the font color, and we want to transform the button to a larger scale. We want that button to be 150% of what it was before. That's the 150% zoom. Make sure you're getting this comment in. This is the first time we're using this. So note, if the zoom is too large, it will go outside of the viewport. So we want to double check and make sure that is okay. So let's hit Control S. Refresh, and when we hover over, there is our hover effect. So at this point, it looks like we have successfully styled the hero section for the mobile view. So everything stacks nicely. We've got a Latin name, we've got the button, and the bottom text, welcome to my student portfolio. Okay. At this point, let's set up one final piece. Let's set up the media query to get this to look better on the bigger screen. So, okay, so let's pull this view out. And as you can see, as we get to a bigger screen, we want to change the impact so that the image, the hero image and the hero text now go side by side. So we want to change that by a media query at a certain length. So here is the media query. We want at media minimum width, so minimum width of 800 pixels or larger. This is the following styles. So make sure you put at media and then the condition in parentheses, not curly brackets. So this says we want this special query to take effect when the width is at least 800 or larger. Open curly brackets, notice that closes all the way down on my line 108. Then inside of those brackets, we adjust hero to be flex row, justify content space evenly center, and we want the height to take up 90% of the view height. So we want the entire hero container to be 90% of the view. Then we're going to bump up hero text to a font size of 1, hero name to 3.5, and button to 1.1. So we are going to bump those text larger so that it's viewable on the bigger screen. So let's type that all in, pause the video, and then come on back. Okay, now once you're back, let's open up our view. So again, I want to make sure I'm saving. Open up our view here. In the preview, those three boxes in the upper right-hand corner brings us to a much larger view. And now notice our media query takes effect. Our flex is now row, so everything, the two children of hero are now row, and we've got larger fonts and so on. So this wraps up the styling for our hero section. When we come back, we are going to begin working on the projects card. So we'll see you in the next one, everyone. Thanks for stopping by.